Welcome back to This Explainer, brought to you by Forge College. Today, we're diving into Capstone architecture and integration plan. As you know, we're right in the thick of our Capstone project, building a DeFi-enabled application on Solana, which wraps up our deep dive into DeFi protocol integration and the broader Solana ecosystem. Now, if you recall our last session on preparing for the Capstone, integration checklist, and strategy synthesis, we put together a pretty massive, detailed wish list of everything we need to build. But let's be honest, a checklist without a real plan, that's just a recipe for absolute chaos. So today, we're taking that checklist and transforming it into a rock-solid technical blueprint. We're going to figure out exactly how to connect our swap and liquidity flows to concrete Solana account models without losing our minds in the process. So here's our departure board for the day. First, we'll look at the airport hub analogy, then we'll map out our data workflow. After that, we'll tackle slippage, errors, and turbulence, followed by choosing our integration patterns, and finally, we'll run through our devnet deployment checklist.
Section 1, the airport hub analogy.
We're going to start with a mental model that seriously makes complex DeFi routing feel like a total breeze. Because, frankly, trying to wrap your head around how decentralized exchanges route your tokens, it can feel a bit like staring at a giant bowl of spaghetti. So think of a swap aggregator or a router as a massive airport hub, and think of each individual DEX or liquidity pool as a specific flight route. When you want to trade token A for token B, you definitely don't just blindly trust one single airline and cross your fingers they have a direct flight, right? No way. You check the hub's schedule to find the absolute fastest, cheapest, or most reliable itinerary. So in this setup, we have a really clear separation of responsibilities. The aggregator, that central hub, stitches together these multi-hop token routes. It might find a path from token A to token C and then to token B, which a single DEX literally couldn't do on its own. But here's the kicker. Your orchestration backend, that's the traveler. You are the one setting the constraints. How many layovers are you willing to sit through? Are you okay paying crazy baggage fees, which in our world means gas and slippage? The hub gives you the itinerary, but your backend makes the ultimate call on whether or not to actually board the plane.
Moving right along to Section 2, mapping the data workflow.
All right, now that we've got our overall travel strategy tucked away in the overhead bin, let's map out the exact flight path our data is going to take across the Solana ecosystem. For a user-initiated swap, our core orchestration workflow is a really strict 4-step pre-flight process. Step 1, we get a quote from the aggregator. Step 2, we run our pre-flight checks. We do this by simulating the transaction via an RPC node, which lets us estimate compute costs and, crucially, catch any failures before they actually happen. Step 3 is getting the user to sign off, and finally, Step 4 is the actual execution and monitoring. If you stick to this exact sequence, I promise, your on-chain interactions will stay minimal and highly predictable.
Take a look at this blueprint matrix. It brilliantly breaks down exactly who handles what. Notice how the aggregator row is completely dealing with off-chain metadata? Meanwhile, down at the bottom, in the DEX and pool row, that's where the heavy on-chain artifacts live. Things like your program-derived addresses, or PDAs, and pool accounts. And right in the middle, the user wallet row is handling the end user's SBL token accounts and their associated token accounts. So why does this clean separation matter so much? Well, if a DEX suddenly decides to change its theme model, your app isn't going to just crash. You don't have to constantly memorize the ever-changing state of the entire market. You just need your backend to reliably store final execution receipts.
Which brings us to Section 3, slippage, errors, and turbulence.
Let's be real for a second. Flying is rarely perfectly smooth, is it? So what exactly happens when our flight hits some turbulence? You know, like when a liquidity pool returns a failed quote, or market prices just wildly shift between the quote and the actual execution. To handle this, we use a 2-stage slippage strategy. First, we enforce a hard maximum slippage based on strict acceptance criteria. This is what protects your user from getting totally gouged, because nobody wants to pay $1,000 for in-flight peanuts, right? Second, we allow a configurable soft tolerance to give our front end a little bit of flexibility. By recording both of these tolerances right there in the route metadata, your orchestration service knows exactly when it can just ride out a minor bump and when it needs to completely abort or reroute so we don't lose the luggage.
Okay, Section 4, choosing integration patterns.
Next up on our journey, we've got to decide what kind of execution model our Web3 travel agency is actually going to use to submit these transactions. We've got a pretty major trade-off to weigh here. On one side, there's immediate submission. The user signs, and boom, it goes straight to the chain. This completely minimizes custody complexity. It's fantastic for avoiding massive security headaches, but it does expose the user to the real-time chaos of the market. On the flip side, we have a managed execution queue. This lets your backend batch operations and run these really smooth, automated retries when transactions inevitably fail. The catch? It requires incredibly complex and careful key management. For this capstone, you're probably going to want to lean toward immediate submission, but you absolutely have to understand the trade-offs you're making.
And that leads us to the million-dollar architecture question, the one that's going to totally define your backend infrastructure. Who computes the routes? Do we calculate the best flights ourselves, or do we outsource the whole thing? If we use an external aggregator, like Jupiter, for example, it gets us off the ground so much faster, and we get massive multi-DEX market coverage basically out of the box. But obviously, it introduces a third-party dependency risk. Alternatively, we could go with local route computation. This gives you total, absolute control over the routing logic, which means you can perfectly optimize your routes to hunt down concentrated liquidity. But fair warning, the engineering cost and the ongoing maintenance burden of building that yourself, it'll absolutely have you pulling your hair out.
So, what's the actual secret here? It's doing both, but sequentially. You want to start out with a pluggable adapter for an external aggregator. That's going to speed up your devnet deployment and get your application actually functioning. But you need to architect your system with a pluggable router interface right from day one. Quote, simulate, execute. If you define that interface cleanly right now, you are leaving the door open to seamlessly swap in your own custom, locally computed route engine down the line, without having to rewrite your entire codebase. It's a real game changer.
All right, our final stop, Section 5, DevNet Deployment Checklist. Before we even think about taking off for mainnet, we have got to run through some final security checks at the gate. DevNet is where we actually prove that our architecture holds water. Consider this your DevNet survival guide. Your off-chain logic has to be rigorously tested to detect partial states during multi-step flows. Think about it. What happens if a multi-step liquidity provision fails after the token transfer, but right before the pool actually credits the user? Your system needs to instantly detect that and emit an automated or manual reconciliation task for the partial failure. You have to map all these compensating actions straight back to your acceptance criteria. Validate this recovery behavior thoroughly on DevNet. Your system must know how to recover gracefully when a flight gets canceled mid-trip.
And next up, we'll be implementing swap execution with an aggregator. If you've been following along, you now have an incredibly solid architectural blueprint. You've separated your concerns, mapped your accounts, and prepped your fallbacks. In our next lesson, we're going to roll up our sleeves and convert this exact architecture into concrete integration code against Jupiter on DevNet. Thank you so much for learning with us today. This explainer was brought to you by Forge College, and I highly encourage you to visit forge.college to dive deeper into building next-generation Web3 applications. Before you close this tab, I want you to ask yourself one question. Are you really building a resilient, decentralized application, or are you just building a really slow, expensive, centralized database by relying way too much on on-chain state? Keep that in the back of your mind as you build. See you in the next one.